Getting out of an abusive relationship early makes a huge difference.
And I'm proud to say I did come in as a victim, but I am a survivor.
Then I could see my mom. My mom was walking toward us. And I got excited. And I was like, there's my mom. And then he didn't stop.
I'm trying to keep it together, I said. I gave in to the tears. And I hated that.
It's not necessarily the easiest process. It's not necessarily the prettiest process, but it is the most effective process. Like, you can do this. I'm going to tell you 100% you can do this, and you're so worth it to do this.
I'm sure losing any child is a real arrow through your heart, but you know, she was great. She was a friend and a family member and our daughter.
It feels just as good the 10th time as it did the first time, to have one of your citizens that you're out there protecting walk up and tell you thank you.
There is one thing stronger in me than fear, and that's my determination.
Welcome back. This is Jen Lee, the creator and host of I Need Blue. Survivors Talk Surviving. If it is your first time joining us, we are happy you are here. If you would like to hear other stories, visit www.ineedblue.net. As you listen, if the message moves you, rate and review it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify so more people can find it. Share it with friends and family. The more we share, the more we learn, and the more we can help. Please note, I Need Blue does contain stories which feature graphic content and could be triggering. Please seek help if needed. Remember, you always come first. My guests today are accomplished and deeply passionate about creating awareness to help victims of abuse and trafficking, ultimately leading to the eradication of this epidemic. Today's episode focuses on human trafficking, which continually occurs at the U.S. and Mexico border. On both sides of our border, girls, boys, and youths are being exploited. Alma Tucker is the president and founder of International Network of Hearts Foundation, INH, based in San Diego, California. Write this down. Visit www.inhearts.org to learn more about INH. Alma has over 20 years of experience assisting victims of human trafficking and advocating for their rights within the border region of Tijuana, Mexico, and San Diego, California. In 2019, Alma was invited to the White House in Washington, D.C. to discuss human trafficking issues at the U.S.-Mexican border with the Trump administration. Alma was also invited to speak in the Rayburn Building at the Capitol on Women's Day in Washington and at the Global Sustainability Network, GSN, at the Vatican in Rome, Italy. Alma received her degree in clinical psychology. Also today you will hear from a brave survivor of human trafficking, Andi Buerger, JD, who is founder and chair of Voices Against Trafficking, VAT, an international organization that networks with independent businesses, nonprofits, individuals, and human rights leaders and legislators dedicated to the eradication of human trafficking and human rights abuse. VAT hosts quarterly international forums providing awareness, education, and solutions. Write this down. Their website is www.voicesagainsttrafficking.com. Her journey of surviving abuse and trafficking, her road to escape and emergence as a powerful and fearless rescuer, is documented in her book, Voices Against Trafficking, The Strength of Many Voices Speaking as One. Both Alma and Andi have contributing chapters. The book can be found on Amazon.com. The information will also be included in the show notes. Ladies, thank you for being here today. I am privileged to share your experiences and expertise on the topic of human trafficking. I know our listeners of I Need Blue will hear a new perspective on the seriousness of this epidemic. Your information complements each other. I would like to begin with Andi sharing her story of surviving the abuse and trafficking. As we learn about the behaviors associated with this crime, we will have a greater appreciation for what you ladies do and the importance of it. Alma, feel free to add information as needed. You are a great resource. Ultimately, this is a joint conversation.
Thank you so much for having us. This is Alma Tucker, president and founder of International Network of Hearts. We are in San Diego, California, and also on the other side of the border with Mexico, Baja California. And I'm also proud to be a board member of Voices Against Trafficking.
Hi, and I'm Andi Buerger, founder of Voices Against Trafficking, and so pleased to be here today with you. I'm also a survivor of child sex trafficking. My story began years ago from the time I was 6 months old to 17 years. My birth family and extended family members trafficked me as a child back when there wasn't a term called human trafficking. People were barely talking about child abuse. And so in the 60s and early 70s, there wasn't a place to go. There wasn't a way to reach out. If it was family members trafficking you, sexually abusing you, physically abusing you, you were really stuck because familial trafficking, the predators get covered by the bloodline. So if I went to get help, which I tried a couple of times, I was sent back and I paid a greater price. And by the time I was 5 years old, my birth mother made it clear that she could take my life anytime she wanted. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to beat her to the punch because the abuse, the sexual torture, things like that was so great. I couldn't see going much further. And I thought, you know, it'd be better if I was just dead because at least I'll be at peace. And I was just 5. So I went out to the curb of my house and I waited for a car to be coming by fast enough so I could jump in front of it. I thought, you know, if I just get smashed by a car, then they can never touch me and I'll never, ever have to be in that house again. But, you know, on that particular day while I was waiting, there were no cars coming by fast enough. Or actually no cars at all. And I needed one desperately. But as I waited, I looked up into the big blue sky and I wondered, you know, who made the sky? How far does it go? I was a little kid and I was just so curious about, was there someone or something bigger than me, bigger than the people that hurt me, that could help me? And for me in my life, you know, that was God. I heard this voice within my heart say, this is not the plan I have for you. Suicide is not the answer. And for some reason, I just trusted that voice. I thought, wow, okay. I went back up to the garage and I leaned against the door and I really felt like I had to trust that voice. And I'd never trusted anyone. So it was a big leap. I felt peaceful. And as I stood against that garage door, I simply said, if you keep me alive, I will do whatever you call me to do in my life. Now, of course, at 5, you know, I didn't really understand how long it would be in order to turn 18 and be free. And as most victims know, you're not really free. But at that moment, I didn't know what else to do. So the years went on, the abuse went on, the physical, sexual, mental, all of that went on for a long time. I did try to take my life a couple more times. But by the time I was 16, I think I just had decided that I'd already suffered so much that I either had to choose to live forward or really finish the job once and for all. And in my heart, I knew that there had to be somebody out there that loved me or some way that I could find my purpose, that I could find a hope. So I went forward. I finished high school, but before I did, my birth mother made her last try at taking my life by trying to choke me to death when I was 17. So after that, I graduated high school and then I went to college, and it was really when I had a little bit of physical distance from these abusers because there was no way to report them as a minor in those days. and there just wasn't an understanding of how family members can abuse other family members. So college was really the first time I actually started to figure out how to learn basic skills, how to take care of myself, how to look at how other people lived, and have a little space from the people who were still in my life, but they couldn't touch me as easily.
Can you explain how, because I think when people think of trafficking, they certainly don't think of 6 months old. How does a 6-month-old get trafficked?
Well, I think it starts with the physical and sexual, the sexual abuse, and babies are often taken, whether it's to sell them or to use them, and you can't say enough about depraved nature, how far someone will go. And my birth mother was the primary sexual predator and orchestrator of pretty much everything evil in my family. A mother who plays doctor too much with her baby, or a male person in the household that will fondle or do things. So in therapy, there are ways where they can go back, and you can't lie. You can only tell the truth when you're under a certain IV sedation. So during extensive therapy, this is how they were able to determine how far back it went. And then years after that, and I was in my 30s, I found out that my birth brother basically said in the last conversation we had that he had never seen me the first year I was born, that my birth mother kept me in a room with a female cousin and had people in and out of there. It's unfortunate. Toddlers, little children, and Alma knows this, if a predator wants a product and can get their hands on a child or someone innocent, a teenager, young adult, they will do that at any cost. And unfortunately, families will cover up those secrets for generations.
Did you have any siblings? And if so, were they also victims?
Yes, I have a birth brother. I'm not sure where he is. I know he's still living, but I don't know where he's located. And yes, he was 4 years older and probably endured a lot more than I did, just by the fact he was older and the fact that my birth mother had an unusual attraction to him as the male child in the family.
What was your mother trying to get? Like, was it drugs?
No, no. She went to church. She was a religious person, and she wanted to have the status of living a life that she couldn't have. My birth father was a salesman, didn't keep a job very often, liked his secretaries, things like that. And I think she just had something that was inside of her that was just evil. And honestly, I do think that people choose to be good, or they choose to be evil, or they choose to do nothing, which in my opinion is just as bad as being evil, because if you can stop somebody from being hurt or help them, I really believe whatever moral code somebody has, that's the least you should do.
Yes. Was your mom a victim of any type of trafficking or abuse or violence as a child?
I'm guessing that all of the kids in that family, like her siblings and her, were probably physically abused at the very least. This is when I started talking about this, people would say, "Oh, well, that explains it," as if it was okay. And I would always say, when it's between an adult and a child, it is never okay to hurt them mercilessly or to violate them. But I am certain that there was that in her life. Much, much later on, we determined through my own therapy and other things that she probably had multiple personalities. But again, that doesn't excuse the actions, just so someone listening understands that it's never okay to be hurt that way.
As a survivor, I think the feeling of shame and guilt are overwhelming. So what you just said is so important. When did you come to the point that you truly felt inside this was not your fault?
That is a big question. I think I worked on it the first 30 years of my life, and I married someone that I thought would help me along, but he ended up turning out to not be a very good person and to have his own sexual eccentricities. So that marriage did not last very long, well, about 8 years. And in that time, when I did get therapy and I started realizing that one, it wasn't my fault. Two, I needed to learn how to communicate my needs better and how to take care of myself and how to change what I expected. Because at that point, even at that age, I was very successful in business, but not in terms of emotional or relational maturity. I was very naive. So I didn't really know how to speak up for myself, how to say, this is wrong. You can't treat me this way. That came after the divorce, before I married my husband, who I've been married to for 21 years. But again, I had to learn how to communicate differently. I had to change my expectations that it wasn't enough to say, hey, it's a great day because nobody raped or beat me today.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people just they can't understand, but it's a tough conversation to have and to acknowledge that it exists. When did you get to the point where you could talk about it publicly like you and I are today?
I started speaking in my early 30s. You might say I kind of took it for a test run because I felt like, one, in my heart, I wanted so desperately to help other people who had been hurt like I had, even though I didn't necessarily have everything handled at that point. And between my faith and my support systems and working and realizing that not everybody treated me the way that the people who were supposed to love me treated me, that there were people out there that actually thought I had value and had worth. And so I began rebuilding my self-esteem, my self-worth, trying to deal with the self-talk, and counseling really helped me with a lot of that. And then again, it was a choice every day. I think people don't understand that healing is a moment by moment process. I don't know anyone who's instantaneously, woohoo, I got it all handled. But I think it's a choice every moment. And when you do that enough times and you do that year after year, it suddenly becomes your new normal, your new habit to say, this is not a safe person for me, or this is not a good situation for me, or wow, that really bothered me, or I've been betrayed and I'm hurt. How do I self-nurture, self-care? And that's an ongoing lifetime process. I still deal with PTSD, and at 60, I'm just starting to talk about that publicly because people need to know more about that. But back to your question, my growth really happened. My healing really accelerated uh, probably in my mid 30s after all the counseling and before I met my husband. And when I did meet him, I realized that what I had always wanted was available to me. I wasn't the one that was broken in all my relationships. It just sometimes takes a different kind of person. And he was the most amazing human in my life in terms of, he basically said, Ed would say, I don't understand everything that happened to you, but I can promise you two things. I will always listen and I will always be here. And that's what most victims need, is someone to listen and to be there, and not always to try and fix things or to try to explain it.
Yes. Oh, that is so wonderful. There's something so powerful that you just said about healing and how it is a moment by moment process. One thing I found with going through my healing process is I had triggers that I didn't know existed. Can you tell us about some triggers that, let's say, caught you off guard?
Absolutely. One of the things I vividly remember to this day, I was probably 19 and I was working in a company, in a sales company, and my birth father happened to own that one. And a gentleman came in who came in all the time, really nice gentleman. He had a very ill wife, and he was just the kindest person I had ever known at that point in my life. And he'd always say hello. But on one particular day, I didn't hear him come through the doors of our office. And he came up behind me and put his hands on the back of my shoulders. And I pretty much jumped out. I just freaked out. I turned around and I'll never forget what he said. He said, "Whoa, who hurt you?" And I wish I could have told him it was the man he was doing business with. But again, I didn't have that presence to be able to do that. So I still have things. I don't watch certain things on TV. If I get triggered by something visual or something I hear, I'm very visual, so that impacts me more. But even if I hear something like a person being called stupid, or somebody angry who's bullying another person, I feel that. I feel all of that, all the body memories. I just know that I have to do something to process that so it doesn't stay with me.
So, for the general public, what do you think is the greatest misconception?
That's a big question, but I think one of the biggest myths is that, oh, it doesn't happen here, not in our neighborhood, not in our family, not in our community. That is absolutely wrong, because we know that just in the US alone, every 40 seconds, a child is abducted, age 18 or under. They're either taken or they're lured into a situation where they are taken. So we are missing children, and a lot of people just write it off as runaways or they're trouble or they're rebellious, but that's not true. The other part is, oh, well, I've known Jane or Joe my whole life. They couldn't possibly be involved in something like that. We have to get better at vetting, not our neighbors like a background check, but if you're leaving your kids or you have kids, I think you have to do a lot of diligence with who is going to be spending time with them and making sure that they're safe people or safe situations. I think the last thing is that people don't want to believe that the monster exists, that people are so depraved they would use a child for sex or sell a young girl for sex 20, 25 times a day, or a boy. And it's just very hard. Now, we've had national headlines with Epstein and Maxwell cases. We know that male and female can be predators, obviously, but again, it's hard for people to receive that.
Yes, and that's why I am thankful that both of you ladies are here, because until we continually have the conversation and expose it, it'll keep going on. Would you agree that part of the reason survivors don't come forward is because they don't think they will be believed?
Absolutely. I did not think people would believe me, especially in that culture. And granted, I'm a little bit further down the block than some of the listeners may be. But again, we saw in national headlines that a 14-year-old who testified in the Epstein case was not believed. And so if they take the courage, it takes guts for a young person to speak up, just like Simone Biles, the Olympic gymnast. She tried to report in 2015, and here we were in 2021 still trying to get someone to listen to her, to believe her, and then they tried to ruin her. So if we do not accept that things happen, that's why I try to encourage anyone who is in contact with children, whether it's a guardian, a grandparent, a natural parent, a step parent, anyone that is in charge of a child, have a conversation about not just stranger danger, but here's our safe word for the family. Maybe the safe word is, I want to go to the boat, or I need an ice cream. Whatever the phrase or word is, this way, if your child is in danger or they feel uncomfortable, maybe they go out in a group with friends and things turn out to be a little different and they're not comfortable, let them be safe enough to talk to you about it, or to text that phrase to let you know, hey, come get me, come pick me up, or I don't feel good, or I don't feel safe here. And then that way, whoever's in charge knows that they need to do something, not just expect that the kid will figure it out.
Yes, and one thing I want to address with both of you a little later on is how the internet has changed the access to our children, because that is huge.
Absolutely.
Yes, but I do have another question for you. Words of encouragement. So let's say somebody who is currently a victim hears this episode, is touched by you. What words of encouragement would you give them to seek help?
I would absolutely encourage them, one, to understand it is not your fault. Okay, what happened should never have happened, but it did. And the most important thing you can do for yourself is to go through a healing process, whatever that looks like to you, a qualified counselor, somebody at church, somebody at school, somebody that you trust, but definitely get qualified counseling to work through. And yes, healing is painful, but the great thing about healing, if you do that and you're faithful with it, if you do the work, you will win. If you do the work, you will win. You can be successful. You can have beautiful relationships and friendships and all those wonderful things. But if we don't deal with the garbage in us, if we can't get that out, it will end up stinking up your whole life, basically. It's not very eloquent, but that's basically it. But my encouragement is, you are a valuable, worthwhile human being, and you deserve to have a future and a hope, a life that was designed for you. And please don't let that situation or those events take the rest of your life, because then the predators win again.
Did people fail you when you went for help, or when they were aware that behavior was going on that wasn't correct and they didn't do anything to help you? Did you experience that?
I did a little bit, because I found out later that some people suspected and knew, but they didn't want to get involved because they thought it would be worse for me and my birth brother. But if they had talked about it, things could have been much better. And when I did try to get help, I was told that, every family has problems. Your parents are under a lot of stress or whatever, and nobody really wanted to accept what I had to say. Even when I wrote a letter saying I wanted to take my own life, the person I most trusted and who I thought would support me and understand that there were problems gave that letter to my birth mother. And then I just got worse. I got a worse treatment because of that. So I stopped trying to reach out, and I thought, if I can just live and survive, then I will win. If I die, they win. And it became a very primal thing, getting people to report. Why would they do that if they're not going to be listened to?
Or exactly, and that's probably part of the fear, is being, rejected and nobody believing them. It just compiles the whole shame and guilt of, oh, this is my fault. I shouldn't have done anything. As children, especially you at 5 years old, you have this natural attachment to your parents, right? I assume, like most kids do, they love their mom, they love their dad. What is the psychological challenge between realizing it's okay to not love your mom and maybe even hate her because of what she did to you, versus the internal struggle of, wait a second, that's my mom, I'm supposed to love her?
That is a very complex situation indeed. And here's my take on what I can say, and having rescued hundreds of kids and stuff myself and watching the stories over and over. First of all, with familial trafficking or child abuse or sexual exploitation of any kind, whether it's pornography, any of that, it's all in the same bucket, okay, to a greater or lesser degree. Child abuse is kind of the big umbrella, and under that you have pedophilia, you have trafficking, you have all kinds of stuff. But for that relationship, that mother-daughter, mother-son, or father-daughter, father-son, whatever the situation is, there is a sacred trust. There should be a sacred bond that at all costs, the parent protects the child, tries their best to keep them safe from harm that can be prevented, okay? A lot of times what I saw, even with the kids we rescued, the parent or the person responsible for the child would just sweep it under the rug, or they would divorce, or they would get rid of the family member that was causing the problem, but then they never dealt with the child's pain or the child's experiences of those hideous acts that were committed against them. So without dealing with that part, the child does not get what they really need, because there's always that self-deprivation, that horrible shame and guilt like you talked about. The other part is, trust is a sacred establishment in my view. When that's broken, it's very hard to rebuild that relationship. And yes, it is okay to not want to have holidays or to not want to be around the people that have hurt you. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. What is dangerous to the victim is to harbor the hatred, to harbor the bitterness. And so I believe in forgiveness. How you get there, it can be different for other people. In my case, I had to pray all the time. I basically told God, I'm not doing it. Nope, you want me to forgive them, you're going to have to do it, through me, because I didn't understand the benefit of releasing all the shame, all the guilt, all the ugliness, all the hurt, and all of the grief. There's a lot of grief involved for victims that oftentimes doesn't get brought out. And so when I released the people that had hurt me, it wasn't for their benefit, it was really for mine, because then I could receive joy and love and laughter and goodness from other people in my life. It allowed me to fill myself up in those areas. But I have seen victims that have really not been able to do that part, or did not get the help they needed to release that hurt, and they're very ill. Some have had cancer, some are chronically ill. It really affects the body. Sometimes they have a mental illness. So I encourage people, please think about it, consider it, get help if you want to release that out of your life, because it is not healthy for you.
Did you lose relationships with family and friends, maybe that you wanted to keep, but after you came forward, they were like, no, I can't believe this. You're lying.
Absolutely. I had a couple of very close friends, and they sided with my birth parents, because they only knew the Chicago Joe, take him to dinner, fun, guy. And then, of course, my birth mother was the Stepford wife, perfection, looks good, the house is perfect, the kids are in tow, they're in line. And so there was this image that was projected publicly that was not the truth inside the walls of our homes. And so there were people, I did lose friends. I lost family, the only safe family I ever knew. I still have great memories of them, an aunt and uncle. And because they were related to my birth mother, obviously, there was no way that I could tell them. I tried, I got close, because I thought if they would just know, they would take me into their home, right? But I never got that chance, because my birth mother was always on the prowl, always trying to get me in trouble so she could basically beat the life out of me and hurt me and touch me, things like that. She was very ritualistic that way. My birth father was more impulsive. You never knew when he would go off. So it was very, very hard. I looked over, I had shadows behind me my whole life, not being able to know if this was the day I was going to really get hurt, or if somebody would really brutalize me. So yes, I lost the only decent, safe relationships I had because of that. And when I did start speaking, my one aunt that I just spoke of, she listened and she accepted it. And one of the things she said was very telling. I called her from a payphone by my college. I had received a 5-page typewritten letter from my birth mother, who heard I was starting to speak about these things, and basically threatened me with lawsuits and was going to ruin me and take everything. Not that I had anything as a college kid, but this was her. So she went on a legal rampage against me and threatened my life. So I called my aunt. I said, I just want someone to know the truth. And I know this is going to be hard for you to hear, but here I am at a payphone, and I'm just going to let you know, if anything happens to me or I die prematurely, your sister, my birth mother, is first on the list. I've already given the police her name, because that's how intense it was. And that was the last conversation I got to have with my aunt until I wrote my first book. And that was amazingly, I don't know how it got into my cousin's hands, but one of my cousins read the book, called her mom, my aunt, and after 40 plus years, we reunited, just in terms of a relationship over the phone. And she felt enormously guilty that she didn't know, that she didn't help. And I said, you know what? The only person responsible for what has happened is the person who committed the act. You can't fix what you don't know. So we've been able to have a telephone or virtual. She's not very tech. She's less techno than I am, which is really scary. But I've been able to talk to her and a couple of my cousins who would have loved to have had, time with me and relationship with me all those years, all those desert years, as I call them. But it just didn't work out. So yes, I lost a lot.
Yes, but you gained a lot too, right?
I did.
For yourself, yeah. So I'm going to bring Alma in, but tell me, now that I just said that, What is the biggest thing you gained?
Wow, I think the biggest thing that I have gained, besides learning to trust again and having a successful marriage and having real friends like Alma and other people in my life, I would say this year in particular, or this past year, I should say, through Voices Against Trafficking, the book that we compiled, I found my own voice. I found the authentic Andi inside after a really long time. I used to write and paint and dance and write music and do a lot of creative things. And between what happened in my life, a narcissistic, abusive ex husband, and all these different things, I kind of lost myself for a while. And I had 9 traumatic brain injuries in the last 20 years. So the first book I needed help writing to organize it. I had my story, the content, the kids that we rescued, all of that, but I couldn't put it together. So I had a great writer help me. But last year was the first year I felt like I am really who I'm meant to be. I'm truly authentic. I've always been transparent, but now I'm genuinely authentic after all of this work, after all this stuff. And I finally get to have my voice. And for a kid who had no voice, who had a huge speech impediment, was laughed at all the time, up through college years, even. And all the situations at home. That's a big deal. And anyone who's been a victim and has not been heard and has not been valued, they understand that.
Thank you for sharing. You're brave and you're courageous. And I know even if you help one person, if your story helps one person, what a difference that has made.
Well, thank you. I hope so. I pray so all the time. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Alma, hello, my dear.
Hello.
I love this conversation because we have Andi, who basically lived it, was inside. And then we have Alma and me, who are outsiders looking in, which is what most people see. Can you tell me about your experience? You kind of heard my conversation I just had with Andi, and I would love your perspective based upon your experience, because I know that also influenced you to begin your foundation organization as well.
Thank you. And thank you, Andi, for sharing with us, to open your heart and all that you went through. I really admire you, and thank you, because yes, you found your voice, and your voice is helping a lot of people. And I'm so honored to be part of Voices Against Trafficking. Thank you, Andi. And listening to Andi, we hear all the challenges that a survivor goes through. Um, Everything that Andi described in the different stages in her life through all this trauma. That's what is the most common in almost each case. You hear over and over all these challenges for somebody can get out of that life, and mainly when it's a family member who is taking advantage and exploiting someone. As we know, human trafficking, the criminals usually know everything about you, knows where you live, is a family member, boyfriend, husband, somebody that you trust. And thank you, Andi, to share this, because who else you trust more than your own mom, your own father who give you birth, and that's something unbelievable. Then somebody can take advantage of all that, but it is more common than we think. I see it also in almost every case, and then I'm able to support. Let me tell you, I'm so blessed to come from a home from my parents, then took care of me and love me and protect me, and this why I'm inspired to do for others, because once you have a good parents, what can you do? How can you don't do something for others that are in need? Andi mentioned, and who is the fault is the people that make the crime, but I've been hearing stories of some girls that say, Alma, I don't remember anymore the pain than I received, or the rapes than I was victim of, I don't even remember those, but what I really hurt me to this day is all the people that were around me and saw it and they didn't do nothing. That hurts. And that particular girl described how her father took her and her four siblings to hotels, to places where they allow adults to rape them, and managers of hotels see that, taxi drivers, and nobody did nothing. Nobody reported. And I think my belief is people then see and don't do nothing is part of the problem. If you see something, you need to say something because you are part of the problem if you don't do it. The victims usually don't have a voice. They're being told, then they are the problem. Some people don't even know what is human trafficking. Some of our girls say, Alma, I thought about that was my normal life. Imagine 5, 6, 10 years old, and they say, I thought our life was like that. I didn't knew I have rights. I thought, oh, that's life. Until I grew up and I started understanding, or until I came to this program, I realized then, no, that was not normal. And I deserve better life and I have rights. Now I know that. Then, yeah, it takes a long time to heal, trust again. I remember closing my eyes, the face of girls and boys coming to our shelters with a lot of shame, with their eyes down to the floor and feeling the guiltiness. And but in our program, we offer psychology therapy. Some kids needs psychiatric treatment because they come with thoughts, then they want to kill themselves because they go through bulimia or depression and anxiety, then all kind of situation. Then some of the cases we need the resources of the specialists to give them treatment. And then we also offer social worker services. Each is a case for us. We want to find who did that to them. Why? Because those kids are now in a safe place. But when a predator lose one victim, they already have 5 or 6, so they're looking for more. Then we need to find the root of the problem. We need to follow the cases. And it's hard and it's a long process, but it's important to speak for more kids don't need to go through this.
How often are the predators caught?
Not too common. It's not common at all. I work closely, with the Mexican authorities, and for them it's like, okay, it's been rescued. We put it in a safe place, but no, I mean they have their hands full and not too common to they follow the cases. We push. We have an attorney in our team too, and we push, and they don't like it. They don't like we are asking for justice for these kids. They take the most, value and beautiful part of these children. Instead of them playing with toys and going to school, they're doing things that they're not supposed to do in their age, and they lose a lot. Then we need to work with all that. And some kids come and very sexualized because that's what they being forced to do. It's hard for people to come in or place and trust us right away. It takes time. I remember I asked one of our girls, she arrived when she was 15, now she's 24, and I asked her, how long took you for really trust us? And she said, Alma, almost 2 years to know that you guys are for real. I was always waiting to what they're expecting from me, when they're going to start asking me to do things, Then it's a long process. It's psychological has been proven. Person who's been being victimized, I don't know, for 5, 6 years, sometimes takes the same number of years to heal. And yes, they heal if they get the right treatment, the right programs. And that's why it's important to have programs like what we have and others, then they provide the right services, because if a victim doesn't receive the right treatment, they can come to be a victimizers, then and repeat what they learn.
I was going to ask you that. They don't escape and end up with somebody great like you or Andi. What happens to them? So do they age out, and what happens if they don't get help?
Well, I'm going to answer and then I'll pass the word to Andi, but it's also been proven in studies then people then don't go out, they die in an early age, because comes a lot of illness, infections, trauma, and then that's one. In another one, they come to be part of the criminals. They start recruiting all the girls when their age is not so attractive for the clients. Then that's another thing. They can come to be part of the organized crime. And but Andi, you want to add more?
Sure. I think what you said, Alma, is just perfect. One thing too, self-medication. A lot of the kids that we rescued, either drugs or alcohol or things like that, that because they're trying to anesthetize their pain. And so and that happens with adults. So the self-medication, hurting others, like Alma just said, whether it's through replicating the trafficking or abuse that they've had. It could be passive aggressive in relationships. It could be a lot of things. They will have trouble with any getting to a genuine relationship because of all that hurt and pain. So they'll end up in the system, criminal, like Alma said, and then sometimes they'll just end their life. We've had so many teens that we helped that had already tried suicide a number of times. And then sometimes it's just too much for them. And we haven't been able to reach a couple of teens here and there because they just decided, I don't know what to do with all of this, so I'm checking out. So teen suicide is super high, but for victims who just can't take it anymore, that seems like a better deal to them, and I can't blame them, actually.
Yes. Alma, I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to add now after Andi spoke.
I'd like to insist on how important it is to have programs for survivors, homes. Right now, we are going through a difficult time to find a house for mom and daughter. Then things that she was rescued, but it's no places for mamas with little babies, Then it's a need for more shelters. It's a need for more organizations than for minors. It's not too common to have homes for minors. It's more for adults, and minors needs definitely they go to foster homes or places, then they don't receive the right care. Then just to be more aware, then how can we help organizations, then they're already doing the work. How can we prevent and this happen in our own home? Communication with our children, social media is taking over communication. Then we need to be close to our children and what they are, what photos they post, or who are their friends, and keep also the eyes on what are they doing when we're not watching them. Then just to bring to the attention and conscious to the parents about what we're doing with our children, and in general community, to do something about it, to stop human trafficking. Because once you know this is happening, how can you look on the other side? Yeah, happening is very difficult to visualize, because people then are doing this with our children, with adults. They're working underground. I mean, there's not obvious what they're doing. They're using the internet, but help organization, then they're doing the job, is what I would like to share with the community. Because when a boy, a girl is being abused or exploited, it's not anymore just the problem with their parents. It's community that needs to respond for these children. Then call the right person, 911, do a report. Calling an organizations is also a national line. Then we can share with you to look for help for people that knows how to take care of this. And it's important to call an organization, not just the police, because sometimes we can face police or authorities, then they're not too familiar with the subject, or they don't respond in the moment then we need. I work a lot with Amber Alert. a predator is going to act in the first 4 hours when they take a child. Then don't wait when you have the suspicious. Then your child is in danger, and call the 1-800 line or call the police.
Thank you for that. I heard you talk about housing. You mentioned mothers and babies. Can you define indirect victims?
Sure. Some of these girls or ladies are being, sexual assault, rape, and comes pregnancy from those situations, and then sometimes the victim don't even know who is the father of this child, and then comes a baby, but then that baby is we call indirect victim, because who is the direct victim is the mom.
I agree with you 100% because yes, the child in that situation is definitely an indirect victim. But think about, as you were mentioning, Jen, what if it had been one of your boys? Okay, watching, going through the process, trying to get justice, trying to get help for your child. The rest of the family also suffers when there's been an incident against a child. Even one sexual assault can taint the entire life of a victim. So there's a lot of residual affect from every single incident of sexual abuse, trafficking, pedophilia, all of that, pornography, all of that. There is always a residual ripple effect after the victim.
And that's where the triggers come into play. That's where healing is one moment at a time. And that's where therapy is, for some, it is an ongoing process, and that is okay. You always, you have to learn to be first and to take care of yourself. And for some, that's really hard to understand and to be okay with.
Yes, it is. It's tough to put yourself first when you were nothing most of your life or treated like nothing. Like Alma is saying, these girls that have been raped and then they end up being pregnant, and suddenly not only do they have their own life to deal with, now they have to think about another life and how much weight that is emotionally. But Alma mentioned something about the mental health and services and resources, the housing. Absolutely, we need more shelters, no doubt about it. We need communities to be more open to housing these folks, these victims that want to have a chance at a new normal. It'll never be normal the way it was before things happened, but a new normal. We create a new normal, just like veterans when they come home from a war kind of thing. But we do not have adequate mental health services. Physical, mental, and emotional abuse is horrific, and it can be life impacting. It can last a lifetime. In my opinion, when somebody is sexually abused, assaulted, trafficked, that is the most intimate violation of a human person, because it's the soul, the mind, the body, the spirit of that human being. It is the life source. And we do not have a lot of counseling or mental health resources dedicated to that kind of healing, that kind of situation, that kind of hurt. I have watched several young victims be taken into an exam room and treated like a piece of meat, all in the name of, well, we have to get the rape kit, we have to do that, and they forget that that is a human being. Okay. And then you have counselors that try their best, but maybe they're not qualified to go that deep into the psychosexual issues that occur, especially with a victim that has had years of abuse or years of trafficking. The average lifespan of a trafficking victim, if they're healthy enough to withstand it, is 7 years. And the likelihood of escape, 1 in 100. And that's only off the statistics that we know, the reporting that we know. After the last 2 years, who knows? It could be a lot broader. But we do know that those victims deserve the very best care that Alma and I and you and everyone else in our communities can give to them if we would collectively get together, which was one of the points of creating Voices Against Trafficking, so that all individuals, all groups, all people regardless of socioeconomic backgrounds. We're not religious, we're not political. We are just trying to leverage organizations, frontliners like you, so that we can go to legislators and go to different leaders in countries and say, this is what we need to do, and this is the support we have.
Both of you ladies, you're very inspiring. Conversation is just the beginning. There's so much more work to be done. And if people can't look past the crime in itself, if they can't even realize that happens, then how do we get to a point where we're really focused on helping and turning the victims into survivors? And I know, Alma, you work areas within the border, Tijuana, Mexico, and you're currently in San Diego. Can you tell us, there's not enough TV broadcasting, social media broadcasting on what is going on at our southern border? The amount of people coming in. I don't know if people know the definition of a coyote. I think you have an opportunity to kind of explain a little bit of that so people understand it's not just people illegally coming into the country, like what is going on, what they're doing to get here, how much they're paying, what they're sacrificing. Can you share some of that through your experience?
Sure, thank you. Well, as we know, it's a phenomenon happening here at the border. People coming from their countries, third world countries, then they're going through social economy challenges, insecurity, etc. Then they hear, kind of like an open invitation. Then the border is open, and no child will stay behind. And then we start seeing thousands and thousands of people coming at the border, and yeah, who moved them? That's the question. Who brought them to this border? Well, the organized crime hearing, then it's a lot of business bringing people from south, and they're selling drugs, but they're also now bringing people and charging for come without documents to this country, and they telling them then come, the border is open, and if you bring your child, is either better. They start renting kids to one another. Oh, you don't have, this couple don't have kids, but let's give them some kids for they allow them to come to the country, and they lied to them. The organized crime charged a lot of money to bring them to this border. They call themselves coyotes, smugglers, and they say to the people, if you want to cross the border by the mountains, 10,000. If you want to cross by car, $15,000. And imagine, these people don't have money. They don't have that amount of money. But then, you don't have the money. Then they kidnap them, and they say, you're not living here until your family send you the money. Or they use them to cross the border. And okay, you're going with this group, but you need to have drugs in your backpacks. And they use them as mulas, they call them, to bring drugs and a lot of amphetamine to this country. Then now we have been in conference with authorities in Texas, with authorities here in both sides of the border, and they either put them a bracelet around their waist with different colors. Depends on the amount of money they pay. They have a different bracelet, or if they're minors, or if they have with them drugs to bring them to United States. Then this is a big industry right now. Then they're making a lot of money. Then they're using humans to come to this country, taking advantage of their need. Then it's affecting both sides of the border. In Mexico, they're Tijuana, particular, they live in camping in the streets, where they don't have the basic, toilets and kitchen, bedrooms, and it's a lot of issues going now with the COVID. Then it's a health problem. It's also because it's the organized crime is there. We win them. Then it's a lot of insecurity issues too, assaults. then it's affecting the community in Tijuana. And the president of Mexico say that the migrants are welcome here. That's also the other message and agreements between one country and another, but they actually don't offer the number of services that those migrants need. Then it is a big thing going here. And now we extend our services for migrants too. We visit them, we bring them food. And my goal is to identify victims of human trafficking, children victims of human trafficking. We already served one boy from Honduras and another one from Guatemala. And the kind of trauma that they're being through is horrible. I mean, the one of particular, the mother of one, she was forced to have sex with men. She was forced to use drugs, and the little boy saw or experienced all that with his own eyes, watching how they were taking advantage of their mom. And then we open now services for migrants too, and it's a lot of things going right there at the border.
Yeah, that's awful. How many children are coming over unaccompanied? I know I've heard stories where the parents want the child to have a better life or whatever it is, and so they're paying for the child to come into the United States.
Well, I don't have exactly the number. I know it's thousands and thousands of kids coming, and adults too. But some they make it to United States one way or another, because some areas has no wall. The project was stopped from this new administration, and they walk in to a different neighborhood. Then it's a lot to do, and looking forward for this new administration. Then it's not so new anymore. Take the subject more serious. I know the President Biden invite everybody to create awareness this month, because it's the month awareness against human trafficking. But we used to have meetings in the White House, and nothing is happening right now. It's not in the agenda as a priority. Then we have to keep work that has been done before.
That's unfortunate, because it doesn't matter what administration is in the White House, the sex trafficking doesn't stop. It's not Republican, Democrat. This is people. And, I want to ask you, so when you did work with the Trump administration, can you share with us some of the things that you were able to get accomplished? Like, if the government is going to help, what are things that they either did in the past to help you out or that you need today?
Well, what happened is, as you know, that administration was only 4 years. Then a lot of the work that they started was in the process of getting to the next level. I know a lot of money was released to fight against human trafficking, to support shelters that are already open in the United States. We were part of that network because our location in San Diego in Mexico, but we were in the process because we want to open a shelter here in San Diego, but everything is stopped. Then we didn't were able to receive that support, and we were in conversations, and like you say, it's unfortunately then the communication is not going as used to be, and hopefully happen soon.
Do you have private donors, or let's say somebody is listening and is like, wow, I really want to help?
Yes. Andi and myself also, we both organizations, and we are 501c3. We receive donations. We can give tax deduction receipts. Then you can find and for International Network of Heart in our website. It's a red button right there. Then and anybody can help us with donations. Any donation helps. Then I really encourage you to keep supporting us, for we can rescue more people, support more people, and look for shelters for people in need.
That's great. So there is a red donate button on their website. Go check it out. Like she said, any donation will help. They are a 501c3, so it is tax deductible. We are all human, and whether we want to acknowledge this exists or not, it does. And as humans, we need to help each other. So every little thing we can do will benefit humankind. Alma and Andi, do you have any last words, encouragement, information that you want to share about you and your organizations, things you have coming up? Floor is yours.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and take the lead if you're okay, Alma. Definitely voicesagainsttrafficking.com. Just like Alma said, it is a 501c3 organization. We're a nonprofit. All the same things apply: donations, tax deductions. And what we do with the dollars, a few of the things, we provide an international forum for free on Facebook and YouTube every quarter, like every 3 months. Our next one will be March 30th. And we bring people and voices from all over the world, US, Mexico, Australia, everywhere, to share what's working in the fight against human trafficking, to share stories, to share policies, to share ideas, to share, hey, what if we do this? What if we did that? So it's a great way to educate the public in little 5 to 6 minute presentations by these speakers for an hour and a half. And so we put those on and we produce those, and we've been doing that for a couple of years now. We also have a new book that's been released, Voices Against Trafficking, The Strength of Many Voices Speaking as One. And there are 18 authors and 20 chapters, all from different perspectives. And our own Miss Alma has a wonderful chapter in there. If you really want to know what's going on with the border, Mexico, what's happening with these children, that's a great chapter to read. We have media members who have contributed. We have a woman who is just amazingly active and astute, and she's almost 80. She actually walked with Martin Luther King. She wrote an amazing chapter on the evolution of slavery, which, by the way, involved human trafficking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. It's not a new thing here. We also have what you can do when you travel, how to keep your kids safe on the internet. So that book is another tool, and we're going to bring that out every year. And our goal is to get a book into the hands of every senator, every U.S. congressperson, every attorney general, and every governor in the US every single year, so that the influencers at the top down in your state and across the board can't say they don't know or they didn't understand. We are making it very clear. And our book also has helplines, hotlines. It also has tips. So it's another tool. We're trying to get as many tools in our belt so that the everyday person can say, hey, you know what? I could do this much. Or if I don't have time or I don't have money, maybe I can just add my voice to the roster. Voices Against Trafficking wants to have 1 million voices by the end of summer 2023 on our roster, which is on our website. You can go to our website. There's a tab that says Add Your Voice. And we want to be able to take those million names to legislatures, to other places where we can say, you know what, we have 1 million people and they want you to protect their children. They want the future of our country and other countries to be protected. And so we can leverage that to get things done. So a couple of things for encouragement. Again, if you're out there and you're stressed out and you're busy, who isn't, and you're not sure what you can do, a very simple thing is go to our website, voicesagainsttrafficking.com, look up the helplines and put them in your cell phone. If you see something, say something, like Alma said. And you can't do that if you don't know where to call or who to call. So put those hotlines and helplines in your phone. And if you have children old enough to understand what they're for and how to use them, make sure they have them in their phones as well. Because guess what kids see? They see other kids being hurt or being taken or in trouble, probably more often than we as adults do, because we're not in the same social circles. So we want to make sure our kids have helplines. And then lastly, if you vote for anyone, a mayor, a city council person, state anybody, governor, make sure that you're getting your votes worth in terms of protecting the children in your community. If they cannot tell you what they're doing, what laws they're supporting, what their activities are regarding anti-trafficking measures and education, then they probably shouldn't have your vote or your support the next time around. So those are simple things that can be done. And again, if you're a victim, please reach out for help. We want to be there for you. Even if we're not in your town or your area, there are people that want to help you. So we are looking for you. And if you've been found and you need help rehabilitating, reach out to one of our websites, Alma, myself. We would be happy to direct you to help. We want to make sure that you have a chance at the life you deserve to have.
Thank you, Andi. And just want to add the number of the hotline is 1-888-373-7888. Please, if you see something, if you're going through something, give a call to this number, and that they will help you specific in cases of human trafficking. And to reach to us, our website is www.inhearts.org. And you can find us also on Facebook and Instagram. And also, please go to Amazon, get our book, Voices Against Trafficking. It's on Amazon. We need also your review, and we have to give voice. And that's one way, getting that book, learning more. And that's the best way to prevent something happen for you or the people that you most love. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Yes, thank you, Jen, for putting this together. We appreciate your listeners.
Absolutely. I want to give a big thank you to Alma Tucker and Andi Buerger. Really appreciate you being here today. Thank you for the courage of sharing your stories and providing us with a lot of information. This is Jen Lee with the I Need Blue podcast. Check out my website, www.ineedblue.net. I also have a Facebook and an Instagram, and I can be found on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Thank you for listening, and remember, you are stronger than you think.